He does not look ready.
No, he is. He is doing what most men do. He's trying to look at your boobs.
Oh. Pay
No,
attention. My
he
eyes are
just
up here.
eyes are. That is all okay. That's the funniest thing to me. When some woman's like, "Excuse me, my eyes are up here." I would be if I was a guy. I'd be like, "I don't care. If I wanted to look at your eyes, I would have looked at them."
Right.
But then I probably would get smacked a lot.
I get that.
Toxic masculinity.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
ready?
In the zone.
Do our countdown.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta do it because my
Oh,
hands are full.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, party people?
Hello, hello, hello.
It is us plus one
Yeah.
today.
Well, plus 2. You have a sneaky one behind you.
Oh yeah, Lil. That's my chunk. Nothing. She doesn't get excited about much unless it's the rattling of a dog food bag.
Hmm. Sounds about right. Sounds about right.
So actually, it's kind of funny because we have Gomez Adams and Lily Munster.
Aww.
Yeah. What do you got for me today?
So today I have, well, it's a murder case, and it's solved. It's not an unsolved one, but I also found a bunch of cool like psychology
Those are
on it.
always the best.
So I'm gonna set the scene. It's 1995, and we're in Washington State, where it's gorgeous.
I'm like, 95. I was in college.
Hmm.
I wasn't in Washington, but I was in college.
Trying to think. I was like in fourth grade, fourth or fifth grade, something like that.
Whatever. Whatever.
However, there is nothing serene or gorgeous about the story. Because we're about to deep dive into a double rape and murder of Rita and Mandy Huffman. Have you heard this
Oh,
case?
I'm gonna say no.
You might after we get into it.
I don't know, but I it's terrible to say it, but I'm excited for the double rape and murder.
This would be the case that the brutal murderer dubbed the nickname the Werewolf Butcher.
No, I've not heard this because I'd remember that.
So this is going to be a hard one because it's going to involve the rape and murder of women and children.
So trigger warning, party people. If this is a little too rough for you, we got some cryptids that are hilarious, and we don't mind if you just decide to go over from here.
Well, if you decide to stay, you can join us while we explore the deep, dark mental web of the werewolf butcher. So, 48-year-old Rita Huffman and her 15-year-old daughter, Amanda, who went by Mandy, was a loving little duo in Washington State. Rita had another daughter that didn't live with her and Mandy. Rita was a divorced saleswoman and was said to be a loving mother and was always smiling. Mandy was
Aw.
in high school, was popular, and she loved softball.
Oh, see, I bet you anything she'd lived, she'd have been gay.
Maybe. This mother and daughter duo were found murdered in their home April 1995. Mandy was found in the master bedroom, in the bed. Rita was found on the sofa in the living room. Rita's breast had been cut from her body and was found in the master bedroom surrounding Mandy's body. One breast was on the dresser, and the other was placed on the headboard above Mandy.
Oh wow.
An autopsy stated that Mandy had been stabbed and beaten in the head before being raped. The coroner also said that Mandy had sustained some severe defensive wounds. This attack on Mandy was very sexually motivated, so I'm going to leave out her autopsy details. But according to Rita's autopsy, she was stabbed 31 times, her breast had been cut off and removed from her body, and her genital area had been also cut off and removed and was stuffed in her mouth. And both women were both disemboweled.
Was the mutation, do we know, were the mutations post-mortem, pre-mortem?
They were post.
So thank the goddesses for small favors.
Mm-hmm. But they were both raped alive with objects.
Yeah, it's a rough one.
During the examination of the bodies, the morgue narrowed down the time to their deaths between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. The police further estimated the time of the attack to be 11:30, and this is because of a wristwatch that there was multiple newspaper articles and stuff that said Mandy had the watch on, some that said Rita had the watch on. I don't know which one it was, but one of them was wearing the watch, and it was broken and stopped at the 11:30 p.m.
Mm.
A family member had further corroborated the times of their death, saying that they had spoke on the phone with Rita about 10 p.m. the night of the murder, so they were alive around 10 p.m. Rita's oldest daughter was actually the one that found them. She couldn't get hold. She'd been calling them all morning, couldn't get hold of them. Showed up to the house and discovered them. When the police got there, there was no signs of forced entry, and the back door was unlocked. The police narrowed it down by like fingerprints and tracks and all that, so that's where the killer had entered and exited from. All the police reports say that the crime scene was really bloody, and there was a knife missing from the kitchen. Police presume it was the murder weapon. Also found at the scene was a bloodied baseball bat, hair, and fibers that did not match either of the victims.
Oh, shit. Okay.
One of the first suspects on the case was Rita's boyfriend, but he had a solid alibi for when the attacks were taking place, and he was immediately taken off the suspects list. I don't know where he supposedly was, but he was like immediately, they didn't even really continue looking at him. So his alibi was pretty strong, whatever it was.
It could have been something like he was at work, so he had to clock in and out. He was on
Yeah.
security footage. I mean,
Yeah, it could have been anything. Really.
yeah.
I didn't dig that deeply into it to find out like what he said. The little tidbit that breaks the case, and this is like we always say, if you see something unusual, even if you think it's nothing, say something. Because
Mhm.
what eventually led them to the actual suspect was somebody in their apartment complex said that they saw a black pickup truck in the parking lot that's never been there. And it was there. It pulled up around 11:30 p.m. Based on the description of the truck, the police put out a bolo. Sometime later, like a week or so later, a police officer on duty spotted the truck from the bolo, pulled it over. Driving the truck was Jack Spillman. He was stopped in the VFW parking lot, actually, and he had a 12-inch bloody kitchen knife in the truck with him.
Oh, shit. You know, that's how they caught Bundy, too. Is there was so many, um, descriptions of his tan VW that from, people seeing a man get into a VW with a woman, and then the next thing is they're seeing missing posters everywhere for that woman. So same thing, they got him on a traffic stop.
Right. The knife that was found in Spillman's truck appeared to match the knife set from the victim's house. Before his arrest, Spillman went was kept under surveillance. They didn't have enough to actually arrest him. So they just kept him on surveillance. Surveillant. I can't even say the word now. I'm not even going to
Sur-
try again.
surveillance.
Surveillance. There we go.
That
I was
makes
leaving
me
out the R.
so. It makes me so mad when my mouth will do that. Or I can't think of it. It'll be something so simple, and I
And it's
can't
like
think of the
I'm
reason
sitting
why.
here reading the word and I can't get it to come out right.
That's okay.
So the police were watching him, waiting for the lab reports to come back from all the hair and fibers and fingerprints and everything that they found at the scene, and also on the knife in his truck. While this happened, another witness came forward who lived in the same apartment as Spillman, and she told the police that she saw him leave his apartment around 11 p.m. and he didn't return to his apartment until about 2 p.m. the following morning. Also, while Spillman was being watched by the cops, he went out and threw out clothes into the garbage. So, of course, the police go dumpster diving and pulled out these clothes. And part of it was a black ski mask that was soaked in blood. So they sent that off for testing as well. Eventually, all this stuff comes back, and the knife had DNA on it from both women. So did the mask. Once it was confirmed that it was their DNA, they arrested him.
Oh, well, this is why we say criminals are stupid.
Right?
It's like, did you honestly not think you're being watched? Did you
Did you not think
honestly
they
not?
were going to go, yeah, digging through your trash?
Right. I guess we should be thankful criminals are stupid because that's how we catch them.
That's true. That's very true. A little back history on Spellman that's relevant to the court proceedings for Rita and Mandy's murders. He was a ninth grade dropout. He lived in a trailer in Spokane Valley for several years before moving to the area of Washington that the ladies were murdered in. While in Spokane, he built a criminal record of burglary. I can't do R's today, guys. Theft,
That's
assault,
okay.
and malice mischief. In 1993, Spillman was arrested along with one of his friends for allegedly raping a woman who had accepted an offer from the two men to drive her home from the bar. The woman told the police that she was held down by Spillman while his friend raped her, and she had managed to escape. He was arrested, but those charges were eventually dropped, and the police didn't have any sufficient evidence to implicate the case any further. Like she backed out and dropped the charges.
I wonder what it. There had to have been something that scared her.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Maybe. Oh, who knows? Maybe he was familiar with her area, or maybe she just didn't want to face him in court.
Maybe. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons. Maybe she
Yeah.
just decided that for her own healing, it's better to not have to relive the story over and over again. Who knows? Now we're going to go back to Rita and Mandy's case. After Spillman had been arrested and was in jail awaiting his trial for Rita and Mandy's murder, Spillman would run his mouth to his cellmate, Mark Miller,
They always do.
where he bragged that he was going to be the world's greatest serial killer. And he bragged that he liked to pursue his victims prior to killing them as he imagined himself as a werewolf. He claimed his fantasies depicted him as stalking his prey. In the investigation, the police confirmed that Spillman had, in fact, secretly been following the women and stalking them for several months prior to the murders. He was mostly stalking Mandy, based on statements and anonymous reports.
Oops.
Oops, what? What?
I wonder if it's me again.
I don't know. I see you. I wonder when we stopped recording.
uh, Probably. Well, let's see. When uh, when I went out and came back in,
Mm,
wasn't one of my shining moments.
right.
Um, I think. Let's see. Probably where what he was. Um, um, Sorry, where he finding out what. God, I'm gonna have to do some major editing. um, what happened to him? Finding out what
Okay.
happened to Mister Werewolf Baker Fucktard
Right.
Howard.
So let's see. We can just do like figure it out, I guess. So Spillman ran his mouth to Mark Miller, his cellmate, about how he was going to be the world's greatest serial killer, and he bragged about pursuing them because he imagined himself as the werewolf. The police confirmed that he actually had been stalking the women for months, and he was mostly stalking Mandy based on the statements of Spillman being found and seen at her softball games as well as around her high school. The mask also that he had tried to throw away was stained with Mandy's blood, and the blood was found around the opening of the mouth part of the mask. And he stated that he was drinking her blood. That's how they got disemboweled. He ripped them open with his mouth, apparently.
Okay, but does the body actually reflect that, or was
It
that
was
just
it was from the autopsy, it was a combination of like tears and cuts.
okay?
So
Okay, okay.
so now, like if you're curious on what the courts have done with the werewolf butcher, they were trying to get him for the death penalty, and that was set to commence in August of 1996. However, Spillman pleaded guilty to the murders of Rita and Mandy, and he also confessed to the murder of a 9-year-old girl named Penny Davis to avoid the death penalty. His
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Is I bet did he pull the whole I'll tell you where the body is kind of thing, and
Yeah,
then
so he did. He showed
yeah.
them where her body was, and she was buried in a shallow grave about 12 miles from her home. And she was posed in a provocative position. She When she was exhumed, it appeared that she had been posed in precisely the same position as Mandy was found on the bed. It was discovered that he had also gone back to her grave site multiple times, dug her up, and performed necrophilic acts on the body and then reburied her.
He sounds like he idolized Bundy. Bundy did the same thing. He would go to different grave sites, and he would make it shallow enough he could pull the body to the top and indulge in necrophilia. Ed Kemper did
Mm-hmm.
with his mother and
Right.
her friend.
Right. Oh, it's so weird. So weird. He was
Yeah.
ultimately sentenced to first degree aggravated murder of Rita. He got 70 years for Mandy's murder and 45 and a half years for murdering Penny. He is currently still incarcerated in Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla, Washington. So I did some digging on the belief that someone is a werewolf, and it is a real psychological disorder.
Yes, it is.
They grunt, claw, feel their body is covered with hair, their nails are elongated. Some people strongly believe that they are in the process of metamorphosis into a wolf and actually many other animals. And they truly look in the mirror and see themselves as the animals, even though no one can see them.
Hmm.
The funny thing that I find about Jack Spellman's case is that he was obsessed with wolves. He was collecting wolf memorabilia since he was young. And that almost makes me believe that to him this wasn't a psychological condition. He
I
just
was
he just wanted he just wanted to be something that he wasn't. He didn't truly believe that he was a werewolf.
no, he it's kind of like the extreme version of a furry.
Kind of, yeah.
Oh,
Ugh,
wait, what's the other one? What do they call them? Animal kin? Where you
oh,
have do you know
I have
about
no
that?
idea. Mm-mm.
Okay, so it's big in the I think one of our podcaster friends is that way too. Um, but it's the belief it's the belief and the desire to be an animal of your choice. So um it's you'll see like those who want to be wolfkin, we'll use that for an example, they'll wear ears and a tail.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
they'll say like, oh, I identify as instead of saying like, oh, I identify as trans, or I identify as this or that, gender fluid, or this that. It's, well, I identify as a wolfkin, or I identify as a foxkin.
Hmm. Interesting.
I identify as a trash panda. That one was for you, Nisha and Buddha.
Dr. Jan Bloom is an assistant professor of psychiatry at the University of Gorgon, and Dr. Bloom is also a werewolf enthusiast. He wanted to know how common this mental disorder actually was. So he did his some research, he did some experiments, and he dug into a bunch of stuff. This, like, he dedicated his life's work to figuring out this werewolf disorder. Bloom found that since 1850 there has been 56 actual cases of people that have this mental disorder, of where they truly believed that they were metamorphosing into an animal. 13 people out of the 56 met the criteria for clinical lycanthropy. I'm really curious on what the other 43 people thought that they were turning into, but I mean, I guess that's a different story. It's it is important to note that these delusions are just in the people's head. They are not actually transforming into a wolf, and that's why the adjective clinical is used before the term lycanthropy, because they're not really changing into anything.
And I might be wrong, so anybody that's listening, party people, if I am, please correct me. I think there was a case study, and they like early when they clinically was early researching this, it was called the Lon Chaney disease,
Mm-hmm.
after the actor that played the very first Wolfman.
Yeah, I think so.
I think, yeah.
So, in any research, in order for it to be a valid research like experiment, there has to be like factors. It has to be able to be done multiple times, and the results have to be able to be duplicated and things like that. So Bloom did all of that, and he was able to actually say that this research is valid. The condition is, and so what Bloom has determined is that the condition is generally thought to be an unusual symptom of other mental disorders such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and severe depression. However, out of the 56 people that have this mental disorder where they, think that they're changing into things, around 25% of these patients had another diagnosis. So that's a pretty big number for people that didn't have any sort of severe mental illness.
Yeah. Mass hysteria.
Well, they were in different countries.
Oh, that.
They were in different countries. They were different ages. 34 were men, 22 were women, and it was from the 1850s until like the 1950s or something. So a 100 years range of this research spanned. So mass hysteria really wouldn't cover, it.
Yeah, no. Um, hmm.
The first case was published in 1852 and described a man in an asylum in Nancy, France. He was convinced that he had turned into a wolf. To demonstrate this, Bloom explained the man parted his lips with his fingers to show his wolf teeth and complained that he had cloven feet and body covered with long hair. He said that he could only eat raw meat, but when the raw meat was given to him, he refused to eat it because it had not been rotten enough. He eventually starved to
No.
death.
Well, he was going to die of infection anyway.
Other patients in the reports had similar delusions about changes in their appearance. One saw the head of a wolf when looking at himself in the mirror. Another was convinced that the bones in her body had been replaced by pig bones, and one felt claws growing out of her feet.
Pig bone? Oh,
Oh, are we still good? Can you hear me?
I really think it's me again.
Oh no.
I'm just going to turn off my camera and see if it.
I can hear you. Oh no. Oh, you're back. You're muted.
Easier to edit.
Right.
So,
So
so
she
I just heard to
believed
say pig,
that, yeah, she
pig
believed that
bones.
her body was replaced by pig bones. The bones in her body was replaced by pig bones. I don't know how you would specifically know. Like, you know, how would you know that they were pig bones? You would just know. In my head, it would just be like, my bones don't feel right. But you wouldn't know what pig bones feel like in your body to have pig bones. So how would you specifically know?
You smell like bacon?
Mm, maybe. But could you smell like? I mean, what do bones smell like? Like marrow? Like smells disgusting.
I don't know. I've never
You've never had that at a restaurant? Oh,
no.
don't do that.
No.
It's so gross.
No, because I don't even like the fat. Like when I ate beef, I didn't even like the fat.
It's so
So,
gross.
no.
I got it at a fancy restaurant once, and they served it like this big bone, and it's split in half, and the marrow's in there, and then they served it with like toast, and I guess you scraped it out and put it on toast to eat.
Yeah. And I used to work with a woman that would she would eat chicken legs, and she would like literally, it was like a popsicle. She'd like put it in her mouth and pull all the meat off and then break the bone and suck the marrow out. I could not ever sit in the same room with her when she ate. Ever.
No, I tried it, and it was disgusting. It smells gross. It tastes gross. It's kind of like gritty, even. It was like just eating fat with sand in it on toast. like old fat, like that's been
And then
set.
I bet you anything they charge you $50 for that plate.
Oh yeah, it was expensive. Gross. It was so gross. No. Modern science, however, has raised the idea that brain diseases have caused the condition, and that the idea of being a werewolf is not very magical at all.
Depends on who you are. I mean, okay, look at Renfield syndrome, where you have the people who they eat bugs and they hide away in the dark. They believe they can't be out in the sunlight,
Oh,
but
okay.
they don't believe that they're vampires. They believe that they're the underbelly, like they're servants to vampires. Like they're not cool enough to be the vampire.
Ah, okay, gotcha. Well, Bloom discovered, or so part of Bloom's research was to do like MRI type scans on brains. And he did all these various brain imaging studies and had that and figured out that there's a specific part of the brain, and he may not have figured this out. It may have already been common knowledge to him. Anyways, there's a specific part of the brain that is where we can sense our physical selves and perceive our bodies, like perceive our bodies. And these regions of the brain are in the brain's cortex, which is the outer layer, and that's
Mhm.
responsible for movement and sensation. And then we know that the neural circuits in the brain involving the premotor and the sensory cortical areas. Am I saying that right? Sensory cortical cort
Cortisol.
areas are
Like
the
cortisol.
okay. And so
Yeah.
that's where we um create our body like like our body proportions, like how we sense our
Mhm.
body. And it basically creates like the outline of our body in our head. With people that have the lycanthropy, the area of the brain fires differently. It lights up differently in the scans when they're asked to look at themselves in the mirror or describe their physical bodies, rather compared to somebody that sees themselves as a normal person. These people, their brain lights up differently in the scans, which is showing abnormal brain chemistry.
Mhm.
And so
That's
I found that
how.
really interesting.
That's kind of where the neurological testing of pedophiles is starting to go, is they're starting to realize that when they take a quote, well, they take a non-pedophile and a pedophile, and if they show, and it doesn't even have to be sexualized pictures,
Right,
but if they show like if it's a heterosexual, they show the, if it's a man, a woman,
right.
kind of thing. And then for with the pedophile, their brain doesn't, the pleasure centers and the
Doesn't work the same.
homunculus, yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't light up until they show like little kids in bathing suits, little kids in their underwear, little kids in swimming pools, and then their brains go like Christmas lights. They start racing.
right. The question is that how they were born, or is that something like trauma that is making their brain, cuz like PTSD, they have shown now PTSD changes the chemistry of your brain.
Mhm.
So it very well could be that some of these people were previously abused as children and it changed their brain and now they're the abuser.
Well, and also too, they're starting to do more research in toxic stress in adolescence.
Mm,
And that's the same kind of scenario of a sexually abused or a raped or a uh, incestuous type relationship on an adolescent, as it
right.
creates toxic stress.
Well, and
And it
stress,
can.
even just normal stress, prolonged stress can change your brain chemistry.
Mhm. But they're finding that there's actual incidents that that are completely changing the whole physical makeup of somebody's brain.
That's
And
weird.
while our while our kids are in the, like they call the functioning five, where it's their
Hmm.
first 5 years,
Right.
um that they're suffering at the hands of an abuser, and it's completely um,
Messing them up.
modifying the
Yeah.
whole even physical makeup of their brain.
That's scary. And, this brings us back to like,
Hi.
Your blood sugar's low.
I know. I'm eating.
Alright.
Okay.
I'm on my way home. Are you still recording?
Yeah. We got a really late start.
Alright. How late are you gonna record till?
I don't know. My episode, and then we'll finish.
Or is there dinner or no?
Yes. There is you have roasted cauliflower in the oven, and then I made meatballs.
In the oven or on the stove or what?
On the stove. I made the sauce from scratch, and then they made the meatballs.
Okay. Did Zach already eat?
Yes, he did.
Alright. Love you. Bye.
Okay, bye. I purposely did not turn the recording on for that.
So, one last tidbit before we can go to your episode. So, I don't know if we talked about this or not, but Betty he has a knife block that's got random knives in there. But no, it's not full. There's knives missing. And then he's got a drawer that is just full of random knives, like mix match knives, all this kind of stuff. And I said to
Me
him,
too.
one day, I was like, why, like, how are you supposed to know? Like, when you come in here, how are you supposed to know that there's not a murderer hiding with one of your knives in your closet waiting for you to go to bed and then he's going to slice your throat? And he was like, what the hell? Who thinks about that? And now I think about this. Now I have even more to think about because what if, what if that knife missing from Rita and Mandy's house, what if they had just had the drawer? The police would have never known that they had a
Mm-mm.
knife missing.
Mm-mm. And that now, see, I am not
And that
worried
would have
about.
completely delayed the investigation. They knew that what knife they were specifically looking for.
Right. Now, I'm not worried about a murderer being in my closet because of the missing knives, because I know what happened to the knives in my block that are missing.
But the police don't.
Well, yeah, that's true. Um, and I do have a drawer of just like random utensils. But this random knives and random stuff,
Yeah,
and it's
he's got a knife of drawer full of random knives, and he's sharpening knives one day. And I don't remember what he's getting ready to cook, but he's sharpening the knives, and I'm sitting there and I can't even remember what I went to cut. And he was like, "No, no, no, use this one." And I was like, "What difference does it make? Like, it's an onion, you know? Like any
Right.
I could cut through an onion with a butter knife." And he was like, "What does that have to do with anything?" And I was like, like, yeah, I think about these things. Like, when I pick up a knife, I'm like, this is a good solid knife. You could definitely cut through bone with this knife. Like, I don't want no flimsy knife when I'm killing people. Like,
I'm defending myself.
I was like, put your solid knives in the block so I can grab those ones. I don't want the flimsy ones in there.
Um, my my son, like myself, is a knife enthusiast, and we we were having a conversation in Texas Roadhouse in August for my mother in law's birthday, and he picks up his steak knife and he says, "This would not be good to kill somebody with because it may be semi sharp, but there's no point." I said, "Well, it's flimsy too. Take it, and kind of bend it and look."
Yeah, that
So
would just get stuck in there.
yeah, so he's grabbing it and he's doing this. He's like, "Oh no, it just break off." I'm like, "Well, yeah, there you go." And then they're gonna find you because you're gonna be running around with a broken knife.
Right.
He goes, "Yeah, uh, that's how come we get the Damascus blades, huh?" I said, "Yeah, because it's metal upon metal upon metal upon metal. It's layered, so it's thick."
Right.
And he's like, "Yeah." Now, mind you, we're having this conversation like it's normal that you know, and
Like it's a normal conversation.
yeah,
I mean, though Betty didn't think it was a normal conversation. As I'm sitting there talking about, like, I judge my knives on on how well they're going to cut through human bone, and he's just standing there with his mouth open, like,
mhm.
"Who are
How
you?"
easy is it going to go in and out? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I want to be able to, like, if I have to hack somebody's hand off,
yes, yes. Or yeah, or your wrists or foot, or yeah, I want to cut
something.
your hamstring, something. Yeah,
Yeah.
your Achilles, something. So also at the table was my brother-in-law,
Oh,
a friend of our family. Well, two friends of the family, um, and of course my wife, my mother-in-law, and they're all turned looking at Zach and I having this conversation, and I look back and I go, "What?" And of course, my mother-in-law is like, "I don't think that's something that my grandson needs to know." And I said, "Well, did you know that a pig can eat a human in 8 minutes, everything except the teeth? So you should probably pull the teeth out and then just scatter them across the United States as you take a road trip."
right.
And yeah, so the look on everybody's face was priceless. And they look at Zach. My wife looks at Zach and he's like, "Yeah, I know this." He's like, "Why do you think I'm friends with the FFA kids?"
And your wife doesn't know this stuff as a cop?
No, she
Oh,
doesn't.
she's not a very good cop. Don't tell her I told her. Don't tell her I said that. Is she gonna listen to this?
No, she doesn't listen to none of our stuff because we bore her. Um,
She's never gonna be a good detective.
no, that's probably why she's never advanced past sergeant. Because she's not a crime fighter. She just, I mean, she. There is some we say all the time is like, she's the one that fights monsters. Well, it's because she keeps them in their cages.
Right.
She's not the one that goes out and finds the monsters.
Right, that's true. She takes care of them after they're found.
Yes, she keeps them in their cages. Um, so yeah, I always find I always think I should feel weird when I say this, but I don't, and I'm gonna say it anyway. This was a good one. I like this one. This was interesting.
Right. Yeah, I
Um,
thought it was interesting because I mean, he stalked her, and then you know, he like essentially tried to eat her and drink her blood like a wolf was.
mhm. But I like the direction you went when you said like he really didn't believe
No.
he
Well,
he what.
I found an article of his sister talking about him, and she talked about ever since he was a child that he loved wolves and stuff like that. And I was like, interesting.
I like great white sharks, but I mean, I'm gonna go swimming around biting people in the ocean.
But I mean, that's something to me like I mean, most severe mental illness, and this mental disorder is associated with severe mental illness. Most severe
Mhm.
mental illness don't start until you're in your 20s. If he's a kid obsessed with wolves, then that's already been there. He's already been idolizing the wolves. It's
And
already
so
implanted in his brain. So
it
you
sounds
can
more like an obsession,
that's what I'm thinking. And it's not an actual mental illness in his case. It's just
a deadly obsession.
there you go. That's a good way to put it. He wanted to be a wolfkin.
Yeah. And he should have just put on ears and a tail. You didn't need to. Uh,
Yeah.
oh, there. You know, as long as we do this, there's so many different disorders you know, and truthfully, some of these disorders, you know, you can sit back and say, okay, well, I understand why this person did what they did because they
Yeah, some of them I
truthfully,
can. This
yeah,
guy.
truthfully, their brain was screwed up. And then there's just some that we just have to admit are just fucked up in their heads.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of them that it's kind of like, after we talk about their childhood and everything, their upbringing, it's easy to see why it happened, what led
Yeah.
them down this path. And this guy just there's nothing.
No, he just he took his obsession to the extreme.
Mhm.
So, yeah, this
He,
was a
he
good
just
one.
wanted, and I think what it was because he was bragging about being the best serial killer. I think he just wanted that fame. He was doing
Oh, yeah.
anything like off the wall to so people would know his name for the
Notoriety.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, infamy.
Mhm.
That's yeah. Um, I got news for you though, dude. There's so many that were a
Well, and it's
lot
funny
less.
because like I had never heard of him. You had
Right.
you hadn't heard of him, so he didn't do a very good job.
No. And I'm like, yeah, no. A lot of them I've known.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's I don't guess, I know. I mean, it's terrible that these three people lost their lives, but at the same time, I'm glad it was only three,
Right.
and that his ambition of being the most
Well, if the
infamous.
way he's talking, it would have been much more had he not been stupid.
Well, Sadie, um, one of Manson's followers, um, that was kind of the same thing as she talked a big game in when she was in prison, like to her cellmates and stuff. Those are always the ones that wanted to be bigger than they could actually be.
Right.
I mean, because look at Bundy. Bundy didn't brag until after he was caught.
Right.
And like and then he didn't brag until after they pretty much were like, we're going to execute you.
Well, he didn't even really brag. He just told them what actually happened.
The truth. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was bragging. He's like, I'm the best serial killer. Like, Bundy never did anything like
Well,
that.
and if you think about it, Bundy, Gacy, Dahmer, Kemper, they never said, "Oh yeah, I'm a serial killer."
Right.
I mean, they now Kemper liked to talk. He with the FBI agents that were building the
Mhm.
behavioral,
Right.
he liked to talk, but I think it's because he liked talking out how he felt so he could understand it. Because I don't think he understood himself why he had
Right.
such dark impulses.
Right.
I don't know. Hey, tell us. Tell us in the comments what you guys think. Um, give us a like, give us a share, give us 5 stars, and follow us on Facebook. I like being able to say this. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok,
We're officially everywhere.
kind of like gonorrhea.
Nah, never had it.
Me either. I've seen it, but I've never had it.
Does it look different?
Catch us on the flip side. Why you look like that?
I'm trying to imagine what gonorrhea looks like.
A lot of blisters.
Isn't that
Imagine,
herpes?
okay, like, have you ever gotten a sunburn that's so bad that you blister?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. Only they're most of them are about the size of the tip of your finger. So like
Oh. Are they so on a woman, is it inside or on the lips?
be everywhere.
Huh.
Be in their mouth. It could be on their lips. It could be on their vulva, on their inside their vagina, in their anus.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's shitty.
Women hide it better than men do because men it usually just shows up on their dick.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
Nope.
buzzkill.
No blister dicks near me. No, thank you.
I don't even want the regular ones near me. Oh, and with that, guys, we've already said it, but catch us on the next go around.
Bye.